going to be honest with all of you. I didn't realize that this was going to happen. I'm heartbroken. I'm upset. I didn't realize that negotiated into Kenny Dillingham's extension was the fact that he gets Anthony Totri as his personal podcast host. This sucks. Happy Monday, happy Christmas week, and happy Kenny Dillingham Dust Has Settled Day here at PHNX Sun Devils, of course, brought to you by our friends over at Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use code BBPHNX for 15% off your first order. No Anthony Totri today, the passenger princess once again in the driver's seat. I'm Erik Ruby. We got the Deli Man, Shane Deef, behind the Mac, making all of the magic happen. Of course, none of the magic can happen without all of you filing in here on a Monday. Shout out Bansheezy, shout out Sharon, shout out Lee, shout out Oso, shout out Robert for what is going to be a packed PHNX Sun Devils. Will round up some news and notes from over the weekend in this first segment, and then joining me in the second and third segment is somebody with maybe the greatest resume in the history of college football, a champion as a player and as a coach at Notre Dame, and then a champion as an athletic director at Ohio State, and sandwiched in there 5 years as the athletic director of Arizona State University. Gene Smith will be joining me for about 30 minutes in the middle of the show. Pre-recorded that conversation earlier today, and let me just tell you, it was one of my favorite moments that we've had. It's one of my favorite interviews that we've had. I'm really excited to share that with everybody. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let's settle in as Kenny Dillingham has settled in from what was a chaotic couple of weeks with all of the Michigan rumors and the extension talks. And finally, that all gets finalized on Saturday. We do a breaking news pod, and then Kenny talks to the media. And what I want to touch on here, we'll get into the 20 million thing here in a second. I talked to Gene about it too. Is the Arizona State all in all has become stronger because of all of this. And yes, the money is for sure a really big part of this. But I want to focus on what Graham Rossini also said after the Arizona State basketball game on Sunday when he was talking to media. Just talking about the influx of emails and voices that were heard when it came to this specific issue or this specific topic of conversation. The reason why Arizona State is going to be stronger now moving forward into the next era, into the next steps of the Kenny Dillingham era here in Tempe is not just because Kenny's got the money. It's not just because he's got the administrative buy-in. It's because of you. It's because of the fans. It's because of the people who have shown that they are going to show up and support this team into this next era. Because if it was not for those emails, if it was not for all that support, I'm not going to say that a deal wouldn't have gotten done, but I don't think there would have been this type of renaissance when it came to this online support and love and fervor for Arizona State and, of course, for Kenny Dillingham. There are a couple of reasons why Arizona State is coming out of this stronger as well. Not just because you're going to be able to pay your assistant coaches so much more money and that you're going to be able to retain them as well, but, of course, the fact that they're also going to now have a general manager. Obviously, this is something that's happening across of all these big football programs. We see GMs in this new era of college football. And as part of that growing trend, Arizona State is also doing that as well. Josh Amura, ASU's existing executive director of player personnel, is going to be taking on a general manager type role. So I guess not officially a general manager with even more responsibility. Of course, GMs, they maintain the roster. They look at acquisitions, compensation for players, all the stuff that the new era of college football needs. Deli, man, this is the right move. We love Kenny. We want the most to be put into Kenny's hands, but he needs somebody by his side that can shoulder this as it increasingly becomes more and more important in the next step of where this program is going to be.
I mean, you have to change with the times, and the school has shown that they're willing to do so, or this administration specifically. That's why Rossini said, "Trust us." Talking about the administration, look at the track record, and it didn't disappoint.
Yeah, and the buy-in from Graham Rossini, and I love Gene had some really glowing things to say about the current Arizona State AD, and I promise you we'll get in that interview here in a second. And yes, the administration role and everything, that's going to be a big part of why Arizona State got stronger. Another reason why they got stronger. Pretty big announcement over the weekend. Returning for his senior season, starting defensive tackle, one of Kenny's first ever recruits, CJ Fite will be returning. This is the good news that Totri teased after the Kenny Dillingham extension went through, and it's much needed news for Arizona State in general. You are losing so much of that defense to the draft or out of eligibility or maybe eventually into the transfer portal as well, to be able to return not just a defensive player, but arguably your best defensive player at a critical position on that defensive line. Shane, it gives this defense a core to build around, and it retains one of the most vocal leaders on the team going into next season where there's going to be a lot of roster turnaround.
Yeah, I mean, he was the unexpected returner, but he's also like, with so much continuity you brought back from last year's defense or 2 years ago's defense to what it was expected to be a completely new defense this year. This is a really good start for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and this defense was really good this year. I know that maybe the team overall didn't hit these heights that we expected, but so many times we saw this defense step up and up and up. And one of the things that we talked to CJ about when we were out in Frisco for Big 12 Media Day, and something all the defensive line was talking about, was that if you could point to anything from that championship season that needed to improve on the defense, it was getting pressure on the quarterback. And I know that not all the numbers are going to point to somebody in the position that CJ plays as the guy who racks up all of these numbers and these sacks and whatever, but he plays just as big of a role as anybody, if not the biggest role, in Arizona State's defensive line improving from last season to this season, because he's drawing two every single time. He is demanding double teams. He is opening up gaps for these defensive linemen, for these linebackers. A guy like Keyshawn Elliott, who announced he's going to the draft, obviously good luck for him, but who was able to rack up some pretty good sack numbers and some pretty good just overall tackle for loss numbers. A big part of that is because CJ Fite is in there in the middle, opening everything up. And to be able to return that guy on the field, as there's clearly going to be some piecemealing on the defensive line and on the defense in general, that's your foundational piece. That's the piece that, okay, we are going to be building around you going forward in the next season. And I do think it's a win-win scenario. I know a lot of us expected CJ to go into the draft, and I think rightfully so. He could have gone into the draft this year, but I can imagine that another year and maybe a higher profile season for Arizona State, assuming that there's a good portal season for Kenny, which is everything that we expect here on PHNX Sun Devils. And of course, just a better overall ending to the season than what we saw this year. It's not hard to imagine CJ Fite's draft stock really elevating over this next year. And then a lot of people on socials and in the chat are saying it as well, where CJ Fite is one of the most vocal leaders, right? And is one of the guys that everybody is going to rally around. And you are going to be losing some leaders. Xavier Alford is going to be heading to the NFL draft. Obviously, Jordan Tyson, who we saw gift his entire team cologne, right? Who's one of your leaders on and off the field as well. He'll be heading to the NFL draft. Sam Levitt heads to the transfer portal. Raleek Brown gone to the NFL draft. Keyshawn Elliott, who's one of the older players on this team, off to the NFL draft. Shaman to the NFL. Like, you're losing so much. It's almost the opposite of what you had after last season. That to be able to retain CJ Fite doesn't just make this team stronger, it makes them poised to be better, because he should be better, and he should allow some of these younger defensive linemen who ASU has been cultivating, or some of these transfer defensive linemen that ASU is going to go out there and sign, or that they've already signed, this is going to be a waterfall cascading effect as a positive impact on the defensive line. Look, I'm going to continue to talk about how much stronger Arizona State is going to be, obviously, with Gene Smith, former Arizona State athletic director, who'll be joining us after the break for about 30-ish minutes. And of course, when Totri gets back as well, and we'll go through this week. Just a heads up to everybody, our schedule for this week, 1 p.m. show today. Obviously, you're listening or watching this right now, tomorrow, and then on Friday as well. No shows Christmas Eve or Christmas. But we had to do something special for all of you here on PHNX Sun Devils, a champion as a player, as a coach, and as an athletic director, somebody who helped pioneer going into this new age of college football, and quite frankly, I think one of the smartest people that's ever been on this podcast. Gene Smith joins us on the other side of our first break. I always love telling you about Circle K, not just because I enjoy all the drinks and the snacks that you can get there, including the peanut butter stuffed pretzels. Those are absolutely delicious, or the jalapeno kettle cooked chips, also delicious, but because you can save money by being a member of the Inner Circle. But the Inner Circle, it's not that hard to get into. All you have to do is download an app, put in your phone number, put in your email, boom, automatically saving money, not just on drinks and snacks, but on gas as well. My commute personally got about twice as long this year, so I've been stopping at Circle K much more frequently, and I was very grateful last week when it was an Inner Circle fuel day, and I got 40 cents off per gallon on my entire fill up. And right now, you can join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for more details. Get those meal deals and get all of the fun stuff you can get at Circle K, including some holiday scratchers that you can pick up at Circle K with our friends over at Arizona Lottery. 'Tis the season for a lot of things, but also for over $80 million in prizes. And guess what? I don't know if you know this, but Christmas is coming up quick, just 3 days away, and maybe, just maybe, you are panicking to buy that special someone a gift, or your friend, or your podcast co-host, or whoever it is. You might be like, what do I get the person who has everything, or the person who maybe I don't know that well, but I'm trying to get to know better, and I want to extend a gesture of goodwill? Well, that's where the holiday scratchers come into play, like Candy Cane Cash, which literally just smells like peppermint, or Cash Countdown, which has prizes up to $250,000. It's a great gift. It's a great activity. And you know what? If you want to treat yourself as well, who said that you have to buy scratchers for everybody else during the holidays? You could buy it for yourself at a Circle K. Get yourself some Arizona Lottery scratchers. Play and gift today. And you know me, I don't play about my energy bill. I don't play about any bills, because I am, yes, I'll say it, I am notoriously cheap. And right now, APS, and all the time, APS wants to help you save money. But you're asking yourself, how? How can they help me save money, Eric? Well, I'll tell you. With a smart thermostat. A smart thermostat helps you take advantage of lower cost off-peak hours, plus it's convenient. Let's say you're hosting for the holidays, or let's say you're home, or for a specific situation. For me, there are some times where I'm hosting the ASU show from home and that corner gets hot and my AC is off, or maybe I got the heat on and I want to turn that AC on. I don't have to get up. I don't have to look away. All I have to do is just boom, quickly. I can adjust my smart thermostat from any device and I'm good. And right now, APS customers can get new smart thermostat from as low as $0 at aps.com/sales. Shipping and taxes not included. Other restrictions apply, but go get your smart thermostat from APS today. I'm incredibly honored for our next guest to join PHNX Sun Devils, a champion as a player at Notre Dame, as a coach at Notre Dame, as an athletic director at Ohio State, and sandwiched in the middle there, time as the athletic director of Arizona State University, the one, the only Gene Smith joining the show. Gene, thank you for being here. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Eric, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's an honor and a privilege.
It was an honor and a privilege for me. I was doing the voiceover for the Sandra Day O'Connor graduation, the law school at ASU. I do that every year, so if you're graduating from there, you'll hear me there. And you were giving the commencement speech, and I was like, I saw the name on the rundown, and I was like, there's no way, right? There's just some other dude named Gene Smith. Right. And then you went up there, you delivered an incredible speech. And, I went up afterwards. I was like, man, I just have gotta have you on the show, because I know it's the week of Christmas, but ASU fans, they got a Christmas gift early in the weekend because Kenny
Yeah.
Dillingham extended with Arizona State, not just his own contract, but of course, a contract that includes a bump for his assistant coaches pool of about $10 million, an increased contribution to the roster in the NIL. And I think there's no better person to talk to about the evolution of college sports than you. So, about ASU specifically, what was your reaction to the whole Michigan saga with Kenny and then the resolution this weekend?
Yeah, I was really proud of Graham Rossini, the athletic director, who did a marvelous job, orchestrating that whole challenge with managing the contract and really doing a good job of doing it under wraps. All of us tried to, figure out publicly what he was doing, but I really applaud him for, working with the agent, working with his university attorneys, and working with Kenny to get it done. Because I do believe, as Graham said, that Kenny is a generational type of coach for Arizona State University, and you consider his background and his familiarity with the Valley and the fact that he loves it here. An investment to try and maintain that leadership was beautiful. So it was really good. I don't know what happened behind the scenes with Michigan. We all assume things, but that's between the agent, Kenny's agent, and whatever did or didn't happen with Michigan.
Do you feel like Kenny played this situation as well as you could for somebody in his position? Because, in my opinion, he was kind of walking a tightrope because obviously, he cares so much about this institution. And there was some public friction that came from a semi public negotiation. I know obviously it was all kept behind the scenes, but there were certainly a lot of things that were at least set out in the open about, not fully shutting down the rumors and about commitment and how much money it takes to build a roster. Do you feel like he navigated that about as well as somebody in his position could?
Yeah, I mean, his comments were really appropriate, and being in the business this long, you knew that he had comments that were orchestrated from his agent or his family or whatever, and he's like any professional. He has to be smart in negotiations, and President Crow and Graham Rossini, they're committed to him, just like many of the fans and donors are, and the players are. And so he had to walk that fine line. I really applaud him for really fighting for his assistants. We look at the 7.5 for him, obviously, but at the end of the day, it's about the people that you work with every single day. And he really, really negotiated something beneficial for his assistants, and I thought that that was strong. So he walked a fine line with all his public comments, but I think he did a good job.
Obviously, you are somebody who's been in that coach's chair, that assistant coach's chair, and I am wondering for you, how much of a difference does it make when you have a head coach that is not only really good at their job, but is also advocating and fighting for you, who is somebody technically lower on the totem pole?
That's so important. It's so important. All of us have to broaden our thought process around what it takes to try and develop an individual athlete, develop a team. And when you got to think about obviously the assistant coaches, and now that the NCAA has lifted the number of coaches that you're allowed to have, because you have 9 or 10, and then now it's who knows what the number is at each individual institution. But you also have to think about your trainers. You got to think about your equipment staff. You got to think about your nutritionists. You got to think about all the people that support the football program on a daily basis, the grounds crew, all those people are part of the system. And so you just can't think about yourself because that ultimately becomes self serving. You got to think about the teammates that you work with every single day to help recruit, help develop the players, and help develop a team that everyone would be proud of. And so I applaud him and I applaud Graham Rossini and everyone at ASU for doing a marvelous job to try and keep stability in the program. That's so important. Stability is not looked at as often as it should be.
I feel so blessed to be able to talk to you today because you have such a unique perspective, maybe the most unique perspective of anybody when it comes to the sport of college football. You have seen success at the highest level in multiple different positions as a player, as a coach, and as an athletic director. Is that, sustainability, is that accountability, is that reliability to know that you're going to get the same thing from top to bottom and not just for 1 year, but for years and years to come? Is that the most important thing when it comes to actually building a championship team?
No, no question, Eric. No question. You have to have alignment from, the trustees or regents, whatever the governing body is called, the trustees here. The president has to be aligned. His support staff, the vice presidents, have to be aligned, and then the athletic director has to be aligned, and the football coach has to be aligned. And so you have to have that continuity of understanding about what it takes to ultimately be successful in a football program. And today is really different. You take NIL and it needs to be institutionalized. The athletic director and the football coach can't do it alone. It has to be institutionalized. There has to be people on the campus that think about it and come up with ideas or come up relationships that ultimately provide an opportunity to increase your NIL opportunities. So, yes, that alignment is spot on. Erik, is critical.
Do you think with Arizona State, I know that the past 3 years, obviously, there's been a huge change when it comes to just the buy-in overall on the football program. Do you feel like you've seen that also beyond that football program? And from somebody who spent time, winning a national championship over at Ohio State, obviously in football, but the athletic director oversees so much more than that. Is it possible to have a successful athletic department with football if you are not also prioritizing everything else as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think, it starts with the leadership. And as we were talking about before, it starts with your trustees, your president, and making sure that you figure out where's your exemplars at an institution. Which things can you really be successful at? I applaud President Crow because he's been so creative with everything that he's done. He's painted an unbelievable masterpiece at Arizona State University. But football and the athletic department needs to be one that has been elevated as it has been. But you got to have the right leadership, and Kenny is that, and Graham is that. And so, yes, you can be totally successful in many other sports and many other parts of your campus if that alignment is there and the commitment is there in order to do it.
You've mentioned NIL and the money aspect of things, and we'll take a break here in a quick second. But I wanted to just take a look at what Kenny Dillingham had to say in his first public media availability after the. Hey, you're smiling. Do you know what I'm about to bring up here?
I
So
do, of course. I do.
obviously he publicly asked for $20 million, which, hey, look, I'd also like to go out there and say, if anybody would like to write me a check for $20 million, I'll also take it. But
Right,
it's been interesting because obviously Kenny is now in this very public eye. A lot of Michigan fans, a lot of national football fans are now focusing on Arizona State and Kenny Dillingham with his name in the news cycle for so long. And a lot of
right.
people had a lot to say about that. What was your takeaway from Kenny Dillingham asking for one large donor to stroke a check for $20 million right after getting his extension?
Well, he's an emotional guy. He's very passionate, which is what I love about him. And he's young. He's what, 35, 36, somewhere in there. So I get that. He probably could have said it differently. But the reality is, I know exactly where he was going. And you look at, a Cody Campbell at Texas Tech who wrote a big check and told the general manager there, get what you need. And I don't know what the size of the check he wrote, but it was pretty big. And then the same thing happened at Michigan with Larry Ellison and those type of things. So the reality is that you need to have someone who does make that, not that level, a $20 million level, but you need people who are willing to write seven-figure checks in order to help the program be successful. And he could have said it differently, but I understood exactly what he was saying, and I really appreciated it because you have to be passionate. One of the things I heard him say earlier in the year that I applaud him for, I was at the kickoff luncheon where he talked about all the fans who could give 250, who can give $500, or the different businesses in Tempe and could step up. I thought that was really perfect. I really do, because when you think about NIL, everybody thinks of the big money. But when you take, I always used to tell our development officers, if you get $100,000 from someone, all you need is 10 of those people and you're at a million. And so the reality is the numbers matter more than anything.
I know that he was a little bit more direct than maybe most people
Yeah.
would have been when it comes to
Yes.
that situation. And I think one of the things that we love about Kenny here at ASU is that authenticity. Do you
Right.
feel like his, I don't want to say lack of regard, but more of just like his ability to cut through the noise, right? To
Right.
kind of speak directly. Do you feel like that might actually end up playing out in his favor when it comes to trying to find somebody who will donate, like you said, a seven-figure check?
Yeah, I do. I mean, he's authentic. He's genuine. He wears his passion on his sleeve. I mean, you see it in his interviews, and you don't want to curtail that. You don't want to hamper that the emotion. That's what helps him in recruiting. That's what helps him with what he does in football. So you don't want to tap that down. You want it to be free. You want people to see that authenticity. The one thing, Eric, that we all have to remember. I always told my teammates this, that the media always writes about the planes that crash, rightfully so, but they never write about the thousands and thousands and thousands that land perfectly. Never happens. So the reality is, there's a lot of people who are not talking publicly about what Kenny said or how authentic he was, but there's a lot of people talking about it in their homes. And so, and that's okay. That's what you want. And so I really believe that, we have those people like you and I who, are paying attention to it every single day, and listening to those things and evaluating it. But there's a lot of fans who aren't. And they just want to come to the games and be a part of that community and have a great experience. And they'll write $500 checks, $1,000 checks, $2,000 checks. You might find those seven-figure people out there, but I always believe that the numbers matter to a big degree.
Look, I'm absolutely loving this conversation. I feel like I could talk to you for like 15 straight hours on this. I'm obviously not going to take that much more of your time. We do have some more to talk about ASU specific thing. I want to ask you a couple of questions about your time at ASU as well. And then just the general state of college football, as it's the most rapidly evolving, for better or for worse, sport maybe in the world right now. But we're going to do all of that on PHNX Sun Devils on the other side of this quick break. The holiday season brings lots of great things, but it could also bring an accident or a serious injury, because those things don't take holidays. And if you ever find yourself in that situation, or you want to just be prepared, you need to make sure you know about the husband and wife law team. Mark and Alexis Breyer, I need you guys to know them. And I need you to write down this number right now, 602-783-8841, because that is the number for a team that brings hundreds of years of combined trial experience with multiple certified professionals in personal injury and wrongful death. Plus, they're happy to make you and all of their clients guarantees. And while nobody can guarantee the outcome of a legal case, they can guarantee that they'll always tell you the strengths and weaknesses of your claim so you can make an informed decision. So if you've had a serious injury, or someone in your family or a friend has, call the husband and wife law team first at 602-783-8841, or visit their website at the link in our show notes and tell them that PHNX sent you. Make sure you're prepared when the unprepared happens. Now, I love telling you about Pure Edibles, not just because they're founded in Arizona. You know us here at PHNX, we are a sucker for Arizona founded companies and products, but also because they just taste damn good. Now, these Pure Edibles are not covered in sugar like all of their competitors. In fact, Pure is a full-fledged candy company offering gummies, Kicks, which is their version of Starburst, chews, and hard candies as well. But as much as we can go on and on about how good they taste, we know that's not why everybody's going to tap in with Pure Edibles. Well, it's a positive. You know why you're you're there. The gummies that offer so many different types of effects, including sleep support as well as uplifting effects. Pure Edibles clearly lists exactly what you're going to feel on the tin. It's not just indica, sativa, hybrid. It's uplifted, it's balanced, it's relaxed, it's sleepy. You know exactly what it is. And make sure that when you do it, you enjoy responsibly. But if you are over the age of 21, check out Pure Edibles from the over 130 dispensaries across the great state of Arizona. We're keeping it going here on PHNX Sun Devils with Gene Smith. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, support the show. Of course, Gene Smith, a national champion as a player at Notre Dame, as a coach at Notre Dame, as the athletic director at Ohio State, and from 2000 to 2005, the athletic director of Arizona State University. If you missed the first half of our conversation earlier in this live show, highly encourage you to go check that out. We talked about Kenny Dillingham, the Michigan stuff, the front, the athletic director, everything when it came to that, as it is a really important situation. I want to keep on focusing on Arizona State as a whole, because one of the things we always hear about this football program specifically is that it's a sleeping giant.
Yeah.
Right? This is a program that is on the precipice of consistent success if this happens. And we've seen a championship in the last 2 years, right? We just saw a completely sold out regular season here in Tempe, over 100% capacity at the stadium every single week, one of the highest attended teams in the Big 12. From your opinion, as somebody who's spent time here, do you feel like Arizona State football is now poised to take advantage of what their peak could be?
Yeah, I do believe that. You have the right leadership, and I believe that there's an alignment from the trustees and President Crow, and Graham Rossini is just an outstanding athletic director. He's really appropriate for this time, and obviously Kenny as the head coach. So when you have that, you need to really take advantage of it. You need to do everything that you can to take advantage of the spike. And look, the reality is the Big 12 has changed. It's not easier to win. It's still hard, but you have a better opportunity to win it. And so I think that this is the time, that everyone needs to rally around this program and do everything it can to take it on that trajectory, keep it on that trajectory. It's always been a sleeping giant, but the best leadership is in place right now, and I believe that.
I think it's interesting because you mentioned everybody getting behind the team. And one of the things that Graham Rossini mentions is that he got thousands of emails during this whole public saga with Kenny Dillingham. And honestly, as somebody who speaks about this team every single day, it's his job to speak about this team, to be on social media about this team. I don't think I've ever seen the type of rallying that this fan base did when the idea, just the small thought of Kenny Dillingham going out that door just popped up. And
Right.
I want to know from your perspective, how fascinating was that to see that large
Beautiful.
amount of people rally behind a coach a coach that's only been here for 3 years. Obviously, it's been a very eventful 3 years, but this isn't somebody who's been in the Valley for a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades. How fascinating is that to have the fan connection to somebody like Kenny?
Beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. The valley is diverse. There's a lot of people who aren't from the valley, who support college football, who go to the games. And when you think about the fans, a lot of us have to, pause for a minute, because we think about football. We got to think about the fans. When you think about a game, it's a community. All the studies show that 65% of the people at a football game don't know football well. They're there for the social experience. And so what Kenny provides is a passion for that community to come together. And you watch his games, and they're exciting to watch. They're never out of a game. And so he's really a good football coach. And I don't know what the emails said to Graham, but I always looked at these type of moments as a great opportunity to gauge the fan engagement, whether it's negative emails or positive emails. You got an email from somebody that's thinking about Arizona State football. So if it's a negative one, how do you flip it? How do you keep them engaged? And so I think it's a really passionate fan base. I think it's the right time. I really am hopeful from a winning point of view they can keep it going.
You mentioned the fan base being passionate, and clearly there are still ties for you to this university. You definitely seem invested in the success of this football program, and as somebody who led the athletic department for a couple of years, I'm just wondering, as you think back at your time at Arizona State, what's the memory that kind of pops in first? It doesn't have to be a big moment; it could be a small moment, it could be behind the scenes moment. But what do you think about when you think about your stint here at Tempe?
I was fortunate to be here, and I left too early because I didn't have the opportunity to chase the goals that I had established for the program, and it's one of the few places I ever left where that happened. And so, because my tenure was short, people think 5 years, but 5 years is actually short when you're trying to build a program. But I just remember the people. I really do. I, of course, remember the athletes. There were so many of them that I was blessed to work for. But I just remember a lot of the people. I was engaged with so many. I was one of those athletic directors like Graham that was out publicly all the time, trying to get people excited. And at that particular time, a lot of people in the Valley were not from the Valley. I don't know what the numbers are today. So I had to, do fundraising for people who had an affinity with the institution, but I also had to do investment because I had to flip the script to get people to invest in the community because they weren't from the community, but they needed to understand that Arizona State and athletics was an economic engine for the institution. So I had to flip it to a business pitch. But I loved it. I loved the people. That was the biggest thing that I remember the most.
Now, when you went to Ohio State, there was a lot of change in college football from the time period that you joined there to your end of your time there as well. And clearly you've also seen a lot of success. There's also just been a lot of change. I think what we've been talking for about 20 minutes now. I'm sure about 15 rules have changed in college football. I'm sure there's something different with the NIL. 25
That's
players just
right.
entered the transfer portal. It's
Yeah.
the wild, wild west. What's your
Sure.
takeaway to where college football has evolved to, not just in the last 5 years, but the last 25 years?
Oh yeah, it's really changed so much. And the reality is that the players had to be compensated at a higher level. I remember 8 years ago we were just trying to change the scholarship model to add cost of attendance to it. The old 4-decade-old model of room, board, books, and tuition was outdated. Student athletes needed to get that cost of attendance. It took us 8 years to get that done. But now with NIL in place, with the transfer portal in place, the reality is it's changed a lot. And there's a lot of people in it that weren't in it before. I do believe that it will, over time, it will shake out. Change is inevitable, and if you don't embrace change, you'll become irrelevant. So I think a lot of the leadership's embracing it. But the ecosystem we serve today is different. The student athlete we serve is different, and but I do believe it will shake out at some point in time. I'm a big believer in when some of the ADs have been talking about that the calendar for football needs to be looked at. We've one-offed some corrections, but when you don't look at it comprehensively and holistically, you're going to constantly have some of these battles. And you need to, in my view, have some planning principles, and one of them is academics. You need to state publicly and in your planning, make sure that academics is still a part of it. And I think a lot of these things we've let football drive the decision making as opposed to grounding our decisions in academics. And so there's a lot there, but I do believe the calendar needs to change. The portal should be in the spring. I regretted calling our admissions officer in January or a student athlete or putting pressure on our academic people to try and find classes for an athlete Think about this, Eric. The portal is January 2nd through January 16th. School at most places have started.
Yeah.
So you're recruiting a kid and classes are in session. So all of a sudden he's transferring, and then you got to find him classes. And that's not grounded in academics. Most transfers of the general student population occur at the end of the academic year. All the numbers show that. So if you want to give the student athletes the same opportunity that all students have, then make it at the end of the year. And so I'm a big believer in that. I'm a big believer in start the season as week 0, moving it up. I'm a big believer in expanding the college football playoff, and I don't know if I support 24, but I would embrace 16 as a starter. But I just believe the whole calendar needs to be looked at. I believe spring football should be changed. We're holding on to spring football like it's the holy grail. The reality is kids work out in the summertime. So create OTAs, just like the NFL, but no more contact. Keep it at 15 contact practices. So there's a lot there that I believe in, Eric, around this topic, but it's changed so much. But the leadership needs to embrace the change and then come up with a strategy in order to create a structure to accommodate the change.
How confident are you that's going to happen?
I believe it's going to take longer than it should. I'm confident that it will happen, but I believe it's going to take longer than it should because right now, everyone is so siloed. Conference commissioners are siloed. They're thinking about their individual entities, and a lot of the television contracts come up. They're not quite coterminous, but they come up in the early 30s. So that will be a moment in time where the leadership has to look at, okay, how is this structured now and best to go to market, be it an individual conference or be it all of college football. So somewhere along the line, the issue will be forced. It's just too much money there. And I think it's going to happen, but I think it's going to take time.
You mentioned the college football playoff, and I found your comment interesting about expanding it because I think there's a couple schools of thought, and I think of a large, I don't say a majority, but a large percentage of people think it's too big already, and also are questioning the inclusion of the group of 5 schools, as
Right.
usually we don't see close games in that. What's your take on the current state of the college football playoff, just beyond the expansion part of it, the group of 5 part of it, and mixed in there as well? Are we seeing the death of the modern bowl game, and does expanding the college football playoff maybe help to mitigate that?
Yeah, I think there's a number of bowls across this country that will probably become extinct if you ultimately expand. That's just going to happen. But I'm a big believer in that. The football player doesn't play as many contests as any other sport. When you think about it, they only play guaranteed 12 times a year, but you practice forever. And you look at all the other sports that football supports, and those student athletes get to compete at a high level a lot of times. And so how do you create an opportunity for those football players to continue to play and chase a dream? And that dream is a championship. And so how do you do that? And I just believe that expanding the college football playoff does that. Um, I'm a big believer in not having automatic qualifiers, just seed them. I think the challenge is with our public, and I get it. When we were at 4 back in the day, everybody was clamoring for more. Everybody was, well, 5 and 6 should be in. Whatever the number is, there's always going to be somebody else that should be in. If it's 12, it's 13 or 14. If it's 16, it's 17 or 18. Or if it's 24, it's 25 and 26. But right now, I'm a big proponent of the group of 5 having their own playoff. when I was at Eastern Michigan University, my coaches would come to me and complain about, what was happening at Michigan or what was happening at Michigan State, and we need to have those resources. And I'm like, if you want what Michigan or Michigan State has, then go to Michigan or Michigan State. I want to beat Toledo. I want to beat Bowling Green. And so I think a lot of schools have had to are trying to chase an Alabama or trying to chase an Ohio State. Um, the reality is there's some schools that shouldn't. And, I plot what James Madison has done. I really do. That's phenomenal. But can you imagine if the group of five had a playoff and what those student athletes would experience in that playoff as opposed to what they just experienced? I'm a big believer in the MAC and the Mountain West, all the other ones having their own playoff, and I think there's value there, and I also think there's cities like Arizona and Phoenix that could host them, so in a different way. But I do believe the bowl, some bowls, not all bowls, I believe some bowls will ultimately go away.
I'll get you out of here on this. Gene Smith, athletic director formerly at Arizona State, also Ohio State, Eastern Michigan as well, a champion as an athletic director, and then a champion as a coach and as a player at a school that I have to get your thoughts on, Notre Dame. So we talk about the death of the bowl game and the college football playoff and people thinking they should be in versus whatever. And obviously at the center of all of that this specific year is Notre Dame. How did you feel about them opting out of the Pop-Tarts Bowl? And sorry, that's just such a funny sentence to say.
No.
but also, because it's a pretty big bowl game. But also
I like Pop-Tarts. I really do. I like the berry ones.
Why not, right? The berry ones are good. I'll say that the brown sugar cinnamon ones, and I think the strawberry ones.
Those are really good.
You see, this is the hard-hitting journalism that you get here at PHNX Sun Devils. You figure out what kind of Pop-Tarts Gene Smith likes. But I'm just curious, and I'm not asking you to put a hit piece out or to staunchly defend. Just what were your thoughts on all of that and how Notre Dame has now kind of navigated this college football playoff problem when it comes to not being in a conference?
Yeah, I really feel for them. I don't know, and that's the thing that we all have to keep in mind. At the end of the day, you have to know what's the feelings of the players, and being in that room. And I obviously assume, like all others, that there was a great deal of disappointment, and they probably didn't want to play. I'm a student athlete. I'm a players type of guy, so I would lean into the players and I would let them take their time. And I don't know if Notre Dame did that to get over the emotions, so you can make a good, thoughtful, cognitive type of decision as opposed to emotional decision. I don't know if that happened, but if I was the leader and the student athletes did not want to play, then I would support them 100%. That's just the way it is. The coaches get paid. They get paid to do a job, and they needed to do that job, whether whatever the players wanted to do. So that's a tough situation. I really feel for them, and it's a tough navigation to your other question. Tough to do because you have a relationship with the ACC, but I get it. The Miami's a member of the ACC, so the reality is they had to fight for Miami. So I don't know. It's a tough one. It's one to study and one to look at as in the rears as we move forward.
Obviously, we continue to move forward in college football. Arizona State continues to move forward now. Kenny Dillingham extended the assistant coaches pool, the NIL. Arizona State built for success in the future, not just in football, but in all athletics. If you had a message, we'll get you out of here on this, to Sun Devil Nation as they enter this new and next era, not just of football, but of athletics, what would that message be?
It would be to embrace it. I think Graham Rossini's message that he shared after he signed Kenny, and Kenny's message. Although you're not going to probably find everybody that's going to write a $20 million check, but the reality is it's a time to embrace the program and do what you can to support it, whether you're a small business or personally, whatever you can do, and be at the games. Having a sold out stadium helps in recruiting big time, big time. And so I would just tell them to support the program. It's on a great trajectory, and hopefully the program has an opportunity to continue to be successful.
We appreciate Gene Smith, a national champion so many times over that I don't know if we have time to bring all that up once again. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Erik. I appreciate you, and good luck in all your endeavors.
Thank you. We're going to keep it rolling on PHNX Sun Devils. Don't go anywhere on the other side of this break. Hey, friends. This holiday season, get what you really want at Fascinations. Look, at Fascinations, they have everything to make your nights merry and bright. But let's be honest, just friend to friend, walking into an adult shop, well, it's not for everyone. You don't need the weird eye contact, the awkward checkout, or the, is this for you? Look, now you can buy online and pick up in store fast, easy, and totally discreet. You can shop online at fascinations.net or visit one of their 12 locations in Arizona, because what happens under the mistletoe stays under the mistletoe. With Fascinations, your one-stop shop for pleasure this holiday season, use promo code PHNX30 at checkout to receive 30% off your order. That's PHNX30 for 30% off your order at fascinations.net. That's right, you don't got to go in store anymore. Fascinations, naughty list approved. And look, well, we're focused on having fun here. Why not tap in with our friends over at Three Amigos? Because around here, we cheer hard, and yes, we celebrate harder, and we always keep it local. And that's why Three Amigos Tequila is a staple for PHNX, Sun Devils, and PHNX in general. Family owned, right here in the Valley, founded in 1939 and crafted in Mexico with 100% Blue Weber agave. It's award winning for a reason, and let me just tell you, it tastes damn good. The Blanco, which is, by the way, now available at our favorite spot, Circle K, is nice. It's a great mixer, or you want to sip on some tequila and just maybe sit by the fire, enjoy some nice and yeho with our friends over at Three Amigos. And what makes it different? Well, it's easy. It's the agave they farm themselves. No outsourcing needed. They create a true farm to glass tequila, and you could taste it in every sip. So this season, tailgate, toast, and celebrate with the Valley's favorite tequila, Three Amigos. And we talk about the must-haves here on PHNX Sun Devils, and you know you must have a checking account. Everybody needs a checking account, so you might as well get one that works for you. That's where Mountain America Credit Union comes into play with things like mobile phone protection, telehealth access, loan rate discounts, and so much more. You can get a checking account that helps you save your money and spend it efficiently, which is hard to come by nowadays. It's also hard to come by a place that supports Arizona State athletics as much as Mountain America Credit Union. Of course, you've got Mountain America Stadium, Frank Cush Field there in Mountain America Stadium, where ASU football plays and sells out all their home games. But Mountain America also donates $250 to support university athletics for every field goal made. They provide $20,000 in scholarships for local student athletes each year, and they sponsor a shoe donation program to award brand new shoes to community members in need. It's clear Mountain America is dedicated to guiding members and communities forward. Learn more at macu.com/ASU. Insured by NCUA. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Loans on approved credit. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us on a Monday afternoon. Really hope that you enjoyed that conversation with former Arizona State Athletic Director Gene Smith. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was one of the more informative conversations that we've been able to have here on the show. And I'll tell you this, PHNX Sun Devils is the absolute only place where you will hear an interview like that, a great 34-minute thorough interview, and then immediately go into an ad for a sex shop. So we appreciate all of you hanging out with us. And it's time to transition from football to basketball. Even if yesterday was a tough one for Arizona State men's basketball, basically handing the game to Oregon State late at home in a 78-75 loss. Let's just go ahead and get into the numbers. Presented by Desert Financial Credit Union, Arizona's #1 credit union, named by Forbes. Of course, the only number that matters is that final score, as Arizona State loses by 3. Field goal percentage, 45% by ASU, 44% by Oregon State. But this is the big kicker here, 36% from deep from Oregon State, 21% from deep for the Sun Devils. Fast break points, 19 for Oregon State, 9 for ASU, and assist, 18 for...
Sorry, those should be flipped. 19 for ASU, 9 for Oregon
19
State.
for ASU, 9 for Oregon State, and then assists, 18 for Oregon State, 11 for ASU. This was a brutal loss. This is a quad 4 loss for a team that's had a pretty good non-con. UN non-con 9-4, which again, all things considered for this team and where expectations were, I would say is not, a disappointment. This team has been pretty good so far this year, but Shane, this loss is a tough pill to swallow.
Not bad. They're not good, very bad. They were on the bubble like they usually are around this time of the year, and now they're nowhere close to it. They're going to have to pick up some big wins in conference play.
Which is definitely possible, right? I mean, you play in a conference where you could get a big win almost every other time that you take the court, but Oregon State's not a good basketball team. They out-rebounded Arizona State 39-29, and they only scored 22 points in the paint to ASU's 38. This was ugly. I don't want to get too much in the details of this game. We'll save love the play for later. I just want to play a really quick game with you, Shane, okay? It's going to be called Guess If Oregon State Beat This Team or Lost to This Team this year, okay? North Dakota State.
Beat them.
By 2 points, 67-65. Cal Baptist.
Beat them.
Lost to them, 75-69. Iona.
Lost to them.
Lost to them, 91-84. Southern Utah.
Beat them.
Beat them, 81-70. Doing pretty good. Sam Houston.
Lost to them.
85-75, a 10-point loss. That was the game. By the way, at home, they lost to Sam Houston. That was the game before they took on Arizona State. Evansville.
They better beat that team.
At home against Evansville, 73-69 loss.
Yeah, this loss is really bad.
Last one, UMass.
Like UMass, I know this one because UMass beat them, right?
Yeah.
And UMass legitimately was one of the worst college basketball programs last couple of years. But they're back. The Minutemen are back.
73-65. Yeah.
Not a good one.
No, not a good one.
You love the play, Erik.
Let's get to Love the Play, presented by our friends over at Arizona Lottery. Play and gift today. The Love the Play was when this game ended so that the women's team could take the court because Molly Miller's Sun Devils are cooking. 14-0. What a season so far for the Sun Devils. Shane, it's about damn time. They're getting pretty close to it. You might need to rank this team pretty damn soon.
You have to. There's no other choice.
There you go. No, I mean, this team is so much fun. And look, you look at Molly Miller's track record in coaching, and we talked about this when she got hired. She doesn't lose. She doesn't lose. And that's the same thing here at Arizona State. A convincing win against Colorado last night, as William in the chat says, Moy Mir, because she doesn't take L's. There were a couple of people in our Die Hard Discord who went to both games, and they just mentioned that the energy level for the women's game was just so much higher, and it was so much more fun to go. I'm not saying, obviously, you got to still support the men's team. They are better than what we thought they were going to be this year. They're still gelling. That this is a low point for the season so far, but there's still so much more basketball left to play.
They're not ranked, by the way.
Oh, I know they're not
As
ranked.
of today, they only got 7 votes.
Yeah, I checked before we got on here. Not ranked. I mean, and here's the thing: is you look at some of the records for some of the teams that are ranked. You're looking at like 13-0, 12-0, 12-1, and a lot of people talk about this team hasn't had the hardest strength of schedule, which is true, but they're still 14-0. I mean, at a certain point, just keep taking care of business and keep winning, and there's nothing they could do about it. They have to keep you in. At least you're receiving votes. And I remember when we interviewed Molly Miller and talked to her about, hey, what are like your goals for this year? Hey, Arizona hosts the women's Final Four this year, and she was pretty serious about wanting to be there and planning on being there. So big kudos to Molly Miller, Moy Mir, and the ASU women's basketball team for moving to 14-0, obviously for the ASU men's basketball team. And overall, way better non-con than I think we expected. A pretty tough non-con schedule, 9-4, but 4-2 at home. I feel way better going into conference play. For both of these teams, I think you expected to, even though you expected the women's team to be good. I don't know if we expected 14-0. So drop your comments down below. How do you feel about Arizona State basketball, men's and women's? We will continue our coverage of Arizona State throughout this week. Like I mentioned, a live show tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We'll be off Christmas Eve and then off on Christmas Day. And then we'll be back for you on Friday with another live show at 1 p.m. Thinking about doing some sort of mailbag episode. We'll be talking about the Sun Bowl, previewing that, and I'm sure, as there always is, more news will come down. By the way, Matt McKenzie, Arizona State's punter, has entered the transfer portal earlier today. Arizona State probably going to revamp that entire special teams unit, maybe not name Kenny and Floyd. Anyway, so make sure you keep your eyes out for everything we have going on here as the Passenger Princess continues to stay in the driver's seat. You can follow the show at PHNX_Sun Devils. That's on Twitter and on Instagram as well, whichever one you choose. You can follow us there. Of course, you can follow me at ERIKRUBY. You can follow the Deli Man at Shane Deef.
Rank 'em, as always.
In the meantime, go Devils and peace.
We all silly like the mayor.